And welcome back to our afternoon panel. We're going to go ahead and get started with our panel about mobilizing to end period poverty. We have an amazing host of panelists with us, and I'm so excited to hear their advice and experiences as we work to push for the IM bill. So our moderator today is Senator Liz Miranda, and she serves the second Suffolk. We are honored to have her here and on our site as we fight to end period poverty here in Massachusetts. And I'm going to turn it over to her today.
Awesome. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to take a point of privilege. Thank you for allowing me and everyone to be in this space as their full selves. I know a lot of people tell me, well, you don't look like a senator. I got combat boots and a sweatshirt, but I damn sure I'm a good senator and I'm great. Moment just to acknowledge, because today was a little hard to come with the news on national television around the police murder of Tyree Nichols. And I just wanted to make sure that I acknowledge that for this room, for anyone that is feeling. I've been working on police reform and ending mass incarceration just as much as I work on reproductive justice, because I feel like both of those are racial justice work initiatives. I can't take away my Blackness and I can't take away my womanhood. And so it's been really important for me to align those two pieces of work. So I just wanted to acknowledge that and allow folks to be able, if post this conversation, if you want to talk about that, how you can become better personal lobbyists for the issues that you care about wherever you live in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So I'm Senator Liz Miranda. I was a two-term representative in the House of Representatives representing where I grew up, Roxbury, Dorchester, here in the city of Boston. And after 10 months from 2022, I think to 2023, I won a pretty intense election to become a senator and the first Cape Verdean woman in the country to become a member of the state Senate. And the fourth Black woman in Massachusetts history. And so when we think about Massachusetts history, there have been over 20,000 men who have served as representatives and senators, but only about 220 plus people that identify as women. And so we've got a long way to go. We just got to 30% of the state legislature. And that's why it's so important that we're talking about the IM bill. I am not the filer of the IM bill. But I've been working on reproductive justice work for two main reasons. One is I started working a lot on birthing justice and realized that the rooms that were fighting for maternal health or ending the disparities on Black maternal health was very different than the rooms that were fighting for Roe. And I see them as a continuum. You know, my life doesn't start and end when I can give birth. And so it was very important for me to sort of acknowledge period poverty, all the way up to menopause and postpartum care. So it's important that we look at it as a continuum instead of slicing and dicing women's lives, that we can only focus. And then the second is to connect both folks that were fighting, who consider themselves feminists, but the feminist movement has left a lot of people out. And so it was very important for me to be at the State House to make that connection. So I'm happy to be here as the moderator. I'm gonna pass the mic right to some fabulous people who are going to introduce themselves, and we're going to go left, and then we're going to start today's conversation. Is that cool? All right.
Hello, good morning, everybody.
Hello.
All of your faces. My name is Charlotte Powley. I'm currently working in the public health department at Simmons University. I teach a lot of amazing undergrads, some of whom are here. So very warm welcome. I've been working on period poverty for almost a decade now. I began my career as a New York City public high school teacher. And I had a ton of students always coming to me saying, I need a pad, I need a tampon. And I was like, this is something that needs to be provided to them by the school. So that sort of lit my fire to get involved in period poverty work. I did my dissertation. I was pursuing my social policy doctoral degree at Brandeis University. So I really delved into my dissertation work around period poverty, got to talk to students, counselors, teachers, even superintendent, and ask them how students are coping with their period while at school. So really happy to be doing this type of work and very honored to be on this panel, especially with some of our honorary guests to my right. So I'm going to hand it over to them.
My name is Alice. I am a student at St. Mary's. Oh, I live in Lynn, Massachusetts.
Okay. Why did you get involved with this work?
Because I felt it wasn't fair that so many women, people that identify as women and that go through menstrual cycles, don't have access to.
I was helping you out.
Hi, I'm Dariely from Salem Academy. Oh, it's like the same thing that Alice said. I felt it was really important for people to get the stuff they needed because sometimes you don't have like change or money to buy it. And it's something that's needed, but some people don't have the money to buy it and just lead through. So
Let's give her a round of applause.
My name is Alexa. I go to Salem Academy. I go to Carlos Middle School in Salem. And I got involved because the same thing as Alice. Because some people in my school had their period and they didn't have any period products, and like my school didn't either. So I feel like it's important to have period products in the bathroom and not have to go somewhere else to get them.
Let's give them a round of applause. No one's told you that almost every movement in this country that has been about equity and justice was started by young people, started by women or people that identify as being women. And so I just see this, you know, maybe you'll come from my job in a few months.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Eiko Boria. I'm from Jersey City, New Jersey. Thank you, good friend / a good friend, for inviting me and having me part of this incredible event. My organization is the Flow Initiative, and we focus on service, advocacy, lobbying. Although after Professor Bell's lecture, I'm going to have to look at all those again. Thanks. You're welcome. But yeah, I'm very passionate about making sure we have access. I work with great organizations like the Alliance for Period Supplies, and we work to ensure that there is access, and also very importantly, education around menstruation. People are very curious, students are very curious about what that looks like. We also work in the homeless shelter system, prison systems, artist community, actually very impoverished, and, you know, live on that poverty line, the working poor. And so I'm very happy here to be able to enlighten you, I hope, and pass over to Lacey.
Thank you. I'm Lacey, Gero. I'm the Policy and Coalition Coordinator at the Alliance for Period Supplies. And you already mentioned that we're a network of members, member supply or period supply banks, like Eiko in New Jersey. We have 120 or more than 120 members across the United States who are serving their communities. They're collecting, they're warehousing, and they're distributing products in order to meet the access needs. But we also focus on the issue as a whole. We do research work, we do policy work, we do advocacy work, and we want to make this issue known. So we do a lot of amplifying on social media, but my work is around policies and coalition building. So building networks of people who work together to amplify this issue. And then we really try to focus our work on access and making sure that products are in every single building. So every single school, we believe, should have products. Every prison should have products. Every detention center should have products. Every shelter should have products. Every single building should have products. And that's what our work is focused on. And so I'm really grateful to be here today. Really grateful that we are a part of the Massachusetts Menstrual Equity Coalition, because they've driven this work in Massachusetts, and we know that this is just the beginning. So really excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. I love stories, and today is really going to be a conversation. So after this question round, we're going to open it up to online and to this room around things you want to talk about. But I like to know why people start or when they start doing the work and what their current initiatives are now. So each of us are working in different spaces to the same goal, which are all trying to bleed like a boss. In this room, we're going to talk about some periods and not be shamed. But I think about my own life. I got my menstrual cycle when I was 13. My mom, who was a teen immigrant mom, who dropped out of Madison Park High School here in Boston to go work where she works till to this day, 40 years later, as a cook in Boston hotels, handed me a pad and said, "Don't mess with boys, you'll get pregnant." And that was my education on menstrual cycles. She didn't want to talk about it. She didn't know how to talk about it. Because she was a teen mom, I think there was a lot of shame and stigma around her never being okay, because she was like 17 years old when she got pregnant with me. And so she was not fully sort of connected into that space. And I work in a building that's got a lot of money and resources, and we don't have period products either. And so I've been working really hard to make sure that public government spaces, including the State House and City Hall, have those products. Another group, so I'm a Boston public school student, but another group that I care deeply about, and if you followed my story, every male in my family was incarcerated at some point. And so when we think about women who are in our prisons, we have 16 Department of Correction facilities in the state of Massachusetts. Although those people are in the care and custody of people like me, many times we consider them throwaway people. And so Framingham Jail and the women who are at Nashua, South Bay, and county jails all across the state, they don't have access to the products that they need. And many times, this is about a conversation about dignity and humanity. I've heard from stories that they've been forced to bleed on themselves or are given products that you wouldn't give anybody because the products are not healthy for you. And so you hear a lot of them complaining about itching or not, I'm a size 12. And so I understand, like, if you give me a pad that doesn't fit me, that doesn't help me, right? And so some of them have talked about stories about taking tissue out of bathrooms to protect themselves or not having their products with them when they needed them. And so that's my why. That's about dignity and humanity. And so I'd love to ask each of you, like, you guys talked about why you felt that people didn't have access to products. But I know, and I've heard, a little birdie told me that you guys have been advocating. And so if you could talk a little bit deeper about your why. You guys are young women of color, and I'm really proud of you guys for being here. But what does your work look like now? What are you guys doing, like, a day-to-day? And I'll ask the other panelists what your work looks like now, so then we can talk about how more people can get involved. Okay, can I give it to you first? Shy? Okay. So your why, again, and so deeper, like, you being a young woman. And then what does your work look like now in your school?
In the beginning of the project, there was no products in our bathrooms because there was dispensers, but like they were money and there was nothing in them. So me, Alice, and Dariely started working on it. And
It's okay. And what happened? You started working on it. What does work look like? What did you start doing?
we wrote essays, and soon enough we got on the newspaper because we wrote our story and how it started. And our project now looks
Can I hear that?
our project looks good now.
Yeah. So do you have products in your school dispensers now?
We added new products because of the company Flow. They helped us and added dispensers in some of the school bathrooms.
Okay, let's get them around the block. It got some attention in the school newspaper, and you work with a foundation to kind of get more products and make sure that the dispensers, I want to say dispensary. Yeah. didn't have the products, they had the products. You guys have anything to add about your process from then to today?
Yeah. So it started out as an ELA project where we had to write about like subjects. We decided to write about how menstrual products should be free. And it got attention. We talked to Nurse Jade about it. And then we just we went in a Zoom with Aunt Flo, and we were talking about ideas because we first started like putting like a basket with tampon pads and put them in the bathrooms, but people were messing with it, so we had to find a new way to get the products that people needed without them being, a mess. So we talked to Aunt Flo, and they gave us dispensers to put in the school, which at the time we didn't have dispensers. Well, we did, but they were money and there was nothing in them. So that wasn't very useful. So, yeah. So basically, they gave us dispensers. We added them, and it got so big that we helped Nurse Jade talk to the fourth grade about like
Puberty.
Yeah, puberty. Yeah, puberty. And I think, we also did fifth grade. And
Was that helpful? The conversations with your nurse?
yeah, it was. It helped a lot because we talked about ideas that we can make it better. We can get people the products they need without stuff happening to them. And we did find a way. The school currently does have dispensers that are free.
And having this is community-centered design, right? The folks who are closest to the pain, closest to the power, so not having access as a third, fourth, fifth grader, and then coming together to make something better. If we did that in Massachusetts in the legislature, we wouldn't be where we are, because continuously improving is so important part of the process. So Alice, go ahead, drive us home.
Okay, also in the beginning of the project, we did like a little experiment, and I brought a few quarters to school and we put the quarters in the dispensers to see if there was anything in them, and they were empty. And the quarter, it was jammed in and didn't want to go, it didn't want to turn fully. So we checked, we couldn't really check, but we saw the best that we can, and we saw that we noticed that it was empty. So like she said, we went to Miss Cat about it. We kind of back up. Yeah.
All right, I'm going in. It's so important because in many of our public schools, particularly in gateway cities or cities that are majority minority, when folks do have money, they're choosing to use them for other basic needs, and sometimes thinking about period products or other things that young people need is important. One thing that was really important about the caring adult aspect, I just want to share that's super important. Having more social workers and nurses and guidance counselors to help. I couldn't go home and talk to my mom. And so it's so important that we have a caring adult who can talk in a group setting so you don't feel singled out about the things that are happening to your body. Super important. So I'm going to start here, and the same question, the why and what does your work look like now?
So my why is a little interesting because I get paid to do this work. So it is a little different, but I do have, personal story that might ring with some of you, because I think, there's probably a few of you out there that also have endometriosis, and 1 in 10 women have it, or menstruators have it. And it's something that, I realized when I had my period for 30 days, how can I afford to purchase products for 30 days? And so the issue became more clear to me then that, okay, I'm able to do this, but Some people struggle just to purchase products for one menstrual cycle. And every month that stress sticks with them. How am I going to use that raised prices now, $13 or how am I going to get the $13 to purchase the products next month? So my work is, yes, I get paid to do this work, but I do have a passion. And as soon as I started to work on this issue and meet people, change makers, like Eiko and like Free Period, who's sitting in the back row, who are working in their communities to meet the needs where the need has gone unmet for so long, my passion just drove for the issue. And so I look at everything as the larger policy side of things and working with legislators to make a difference and to speak up about these issues, to bring awareness to the issues, and to really work to make the policy changes. So for me personally, looking at this year in the period equity space, access is the priority. You know, we focus a lot on period access. We touch the tampon tax, but we know that's just a stepping stone. You know, cutting a few cents, it does go a long way for a family. But for people who can't even afford the box in the first place without the tax, what are we going to do? So looking at the whole perspective and making sure we're meeting people where they are so that the 1 in 3 people who say that they are missing school or they're missing work or they're missing events, low income people, I should say, and 1 in 4 students who are missing school, we need to meet them where they're at. So that's where my work is driven. And then I've seen over the past year, this rise in this movement. I've seen 19 states pass legislation to put products in schools. And unfortunately, Massachusetts isn't there yet. And so working with you all, I really hope that we can push that needle this year here in this state, but continue to push it throughout the entire country and not just in schools, but in shelters and jails and prisons, just what I talked about earlier. We want to see those products everywhere. So that's our priority this year. That's my priority in this work. And I really want to continue to meet people and connect you with your legislators so that everyone can be involved in that conversation.
So my why really came in late 2019 and listening to this climate in our country and just sort of this climate around women, menstruating people. I thought it was just a moment for me, a line drawn in the sand, and I wanted to do something. I honestly can tell you that I've never read a feminist book or am well versed in what the philosophies may be or are, but I just knew that there was something that I had to do about this because it was something that I knew exactly what it was. And not only do you bleed, but there's pain, there's discomfort, there's a lot of, it affects you mentally as well. You're exhausted. And I wanted to do something about it. Certainly, the more I researched it and the more I read about it, it's something that has been this way since the beginning of time, really. Like if you just look at civilizations, they've all treated menstruation the same. And there's been definitely no progress or advancement in it. And in really being able to have the access that is needed to just really respect the body that menstruates. It's really just about respecting us, respecting, you know, I feel like menstruating bodies are either disregarded or regulated. They're never really respected. And that was the catalyst for me to really do something about it. And the way I do that is by providing access in places like libraries, making sure that, again, through legislation, there's significant change. Because if not, I'll just feel like I'm sort of peddling poverty in a way. Like I don't want to keep doing it like for the next 10 years and just providing, I really want some type of change that is permanent. And also acknowledging the work of period poverty, but also the work of menstrual equity, which speaks about just even if you can't afford the products, they should just be in every bathroom because that's the respect, that's where you show respect. You know, that other side of this issue is the people that can't afford it, but, you know, go to a bathroom or go to a mall, has spent hundreds of dollars on anything, and they go to the bathroom and they don't have access. And just like that person that is in period poverty, they too have to use toilet paper to manage their period for them until they can get access. So really merging those two concepts and making it just an overall force in this country.
Thank you. So we're going to have Charlotte, right? Charlotte's going to end this round. And then what I'm going to ask is I'm going to switch up the agenda a little bit because we have about 25 minutes, right? I like being on time. And actually do a couple of exercises in terms of seeing who's in the audience and allowing you to ask a question of one person. And because we want to get a lot of questions and have the conversation, I'll point to one person on the panel to answer the question. That way we can get more answers to a bunch of different questions. So Charlotte, your why and what does your work look like now? You've been talking to me about being a professor in the public health space at one of the sibling colleges. I went to Wellesley, so I understand my sisters in service and my siblings at Simmons. And so thank you for the work that you do.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm also a proud Barnard alum, so I feel like I'm surrounded by proud people from women-centered universities. I would say the why for me is a lot about belonging. So how do spaces, be it academic spaces, send messages to their students that we've considered you, right? Not just as academic units, academic outputs, but like the entire needs of your body. So I'm curious how many people in this room are students. I consider myself a lifelong student. Because we have a lot of students here, which is really exciting. And I want you to just take a moment and reflect on what are the messages sent to you by your schools, universities, saying we've thought about you. Again, not just about your academics, but we've thought about you as human beings, as people, right? About your needs as people. And I think those messaging efforts are really, really important. So when you go into a stall and you don't have what you need, right, that sends a message. But when we're providing toilet paper, hand soap, right, water even to wash your hands with, someone thought about that. That was intentional. And so I think a lot of what's happening in the menstrual equity space is about invisibility, right? Whose bodies have been invisible, intentionally, unintentionally. But I do think it ties back to representation and leadership, right? Who's kind of steering the boat and saying, well, what are the needs of people? And I think when more and more faces of the captain in the seat are looking like this audience, I think we'll see some change. So again, I always tie it back to belonging, right? Sending those messages that you belong in the space, you are considered, your needs are considered, and you're valued here, and you're visible, and your voices are heard.
So we heard about belonging. We heard about thinking about endometriosis, and there are people that are missing school, 40 million menstruating people, and that's just who's counted. And we know we don't count people well because there are a lot of others that are left out. So folks in the LGBTQIA community, folks who are underdocumented or undocumented, that we erase from our culture. And there's over 200,000 people in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts who identify as that. Folks who are of color and those that are lower income. I do well for myself, but when I wanted to choose better products, I couldn't believe the price of them. So I currently use like Honey Pot products. I think that they're a Black-owned brand. I wanted to support their company, and one of the founders is actually a friend of mine. And the price point for Honey Pot products were 3 times as much as it cost me when I was buying Walgreens and CVS brand products, because when I would look at Kotex or Tampax, they would oftentimes $2, $3, $4 more than the other products that were store products. And I remember having a conversation with one of my friends. She was like, you do good for yourself. Why are you buying store brands? And I was like, well, it's the same. It's in the same package, you know, but the idea is that products do cost more. And so this next part of the agenda, I want to talk about your questions and talk about how do we get involved. So I want everyone to do an exercise for me. Who's got a cell phone with them? Okay. So open your cell phone for a second. I just want you to Google, who is my state rep? Now, if you don't live in Massachusetts, I don't know how they get that information to you, so I apologize in advance. But if you Google who is my state rep, you'll get taken to a couple links where you have to put your address. And while I start the conversations, I want you guys to put your address in that, because Lacey made a good point. Massachusetts is first in a lot of things. And the fact that there are 19 states that have thought about dignity and humanity of menstruating people and that have passed bills, and we, a state that has 1 in 20 millionaires and a $49.8 billion budget and a surplus in our rainy day fund each year, that's so much so that we had to send back billions of dollars to tax-paying citizens, is deplorable, right? And we want to shame us so that we can lobby us to make sure that this session, it passes. And so how many of you, thank you, how many of you guys have found out who your senator or your state rep is? I'm going to go in the back of the room. Who is it?
David Ciccolini in Rhode Island.
Okay, cool. I'm going to go on this side.
Jason, Gero Paraceller and Joan Lovely.
Joan Lovely works a lot with me on the birthing justice space, represents towns of Beverly and up north, somewhere down here, right? Yes. So Sam works closely with me. I have Jamaica Plain in my district. And so Jamaica Plain or Mission Hill, right? They are actually a really great person and working in this space with me. Anyone down here? A young person?
Down here, state rep is Linsky.
Linsky. Oh, Natick. Framingham. Okay, good. Anyone else on here? Young person?
We're also Rhode Island.
Rhode Island. So this is the homework. Who are you? Your legislators?
No, I'm still searching.
And because you go to school in Salem or live in Salem, you got another plug because our lieutenant governor is from Salem. So that's an important person that you want to stay in touch with to get things done at the executive branch. So the homework assignment is that you will send that person an email, or if you feel more comfortable, make a phone call and just 3 lines. I'm so-and-so. Okay, I'm going to come to you in a second. I love you raising your hand. I'm so-and-so. I live in your district, or I go to school in your district or work in your district. And I want to tell you that I'm a supporter of the I Am bill that is about getting menstruation products in XYZ. And I would love to have a conversation or meet with you or your staff to talk about why I would like you to work on that issue. Most of us get less than 3 emails or phone calls about an issue. And it's so important that folks know that I have 180,000 people, 30,000 of them voted in this last election, which is a problem in itself. But I have to adhere to those folks. I work for them. And so it's important that you use your voice to say, is that cool? Is that a homework assignment that everyone can do? Okay, awesome. Thank you. So question time. You have a question? You want to tell me who your person is? Yes, Miss Mattapan in Milton. Good friend of mine. One of 4 Black women. There are only 4 Black women in the state legislature here in Massachusetts. And Representative Brandy Fluka Oakley represents parts of Hyde Park, Dorchester, Mattapan, and Milton. And I'm going to get your information to make sure she knows how to reach you. So who's got a burning question that you'd like to ask one of our panelists? I'm going to start on this side. So, yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for your time today. The work you are all doing is very commendable, especially you 3, like just at your age, the fact that you have so much ambition and we really want to make a change. It's really, really inspirational. So thank you. Just wanted to prep. Oh, no, I do have a question. So like, for instance, like if you look around this room, you see a lot of people who are very eager, very passionate about this topic, but a lot of the people who would probably need education about like what menstrual equity is, like what period poverty is, like they're never in these spaces. So how do we engage those people and really get them to like show up and show out?
Sorry. So that question, if you didn't hear, was mostly about like, it's not always who's in the room, right? It's who are we fighting for that are not in the room. And it's an important thing. I started the conversation today about the ways that I saw feminism not work for me. And then I read a book called Hood Feminism. And I was like, that's me, y'all. I was like, okay, that identifies with more of my sort of linkages to bell hooks and Audre Lorde, because I always struggled in spaces where I felt that my white allies would work really hard for reproductive justice. And then when immigration reform happened or police reform happened, or talking about gun violence, they weren't in the room. And I felt betrayed. You know, I'd look around and I'd be like, where's your pink pussy hat now, right? Where is that hat? Because you guys are getting on the trains coming to fight for one thing. All these issues, if I can implore another thing on you, besides that we work for you, is that they're all intersectional. Fighting for equity or justice has no boundaries. It doesn't have a racial boundary, it doesn't have a gender boundary, it doesn't have a geographical boundary. And in the Commonwealth, we have 351 cities and towns, and I will tell you that this issue is in every corner from Pittsfield to P-Town. So even though you might be living in a town like Wellesley or Dover and thinking about how do you participate because you think your town has a lot of resources, there are definitely people struggling with this issue. So who wants to talk about how you actually get people that are not usually in the space to care about the issue?
I'll just say that number one, coalition building is very important because you may know someone and the next one person may know someone and the person next to them may know someone. So I highly recommend that. And looking for your allies, identifying allies early on in what you want to do and really honing in on them and just lobbying them to bring in more people and to do that work, because you're right, the people that do the laws and they're the ones that we need to listen to this the most, aren't always there. So that's I can speak from my experience, that's what's helped me a great deal.
Yep. And before I go there, so one of the things that folks know is we make laws. We also handle this budget and we try to give our fair share. It's never been fair share to many communities. But the other two things that folks don't realize that legislators do is we do constituent services. So we help people in our district. That's an easy way to say that. And then we have a platform. You know, sadly, most people listen to us when we make a phone call or we make a Instagram post. And so it's important that you realize who is your ally in the State House that cares about this issue. I didn't file this issue, but it's so big to me because my parents are Cape Verdean and I went to Cape Verde in December and realized how much of the issue is in West African countries where folks are not even using paper because paper is a commodity. Some of them are using leaves. Some of them are just bleeding because they stay home for the week and stay out of school because there's no access to products for most of the menstruating people there. And so I think it's important to know that even if your elected official does not work on this issue, particularly hearing from you is going to be something that motivates them to ask Senator Jalen and, you know, Rep. Livingstone and other people who are working on this issue to say, hey, I care about this issue. So Charlotte's going to add, and then I'm going to get your questions ready on this side. I'm going to go toward the back and get a question here. Then I'm going to come back to the panel. And I heard there's some people online. So if someone want to get a question from online, that would be really equitable. So make sure that they're in this space as well.
Awesome. So I think this is probably the teacher in me, but I wanted to share an acronym with you all. And public health students, this might sound familiar. But in any sort of advocacy work, we always think of EPIC, EPIC. You want to engage, you want to present the problem, illustrate the solution, and then call to action. And I would really emphasize the E, I think, particularly in the spirit of your question. How do you engage your audience, or how do you engage someone who maybe doesn't understand the importance of period poverty or can't even relate to it? So I often say with the E, with the engage, come in with a hook. Can you imagine sitting in a bathroom stall and you look over and there's no toilet tissue, right? So you're connecting with that person saying, this is what it feels like, right? To be squatting down and be like, shit, I don't have what I need today, you know? So it's you're pulling in your audience. Again, even if you're imagining, well, this person can't relate to me at all, but how, again, do you engage? Do you pull them in? And that's that hook. So the EPIC is what I always come back to of EPIC.
I learned something new. Thank you. I'm going to be in spaces. I was like, what's your epic? And they're going to be like, what's wrong with you? So engage, present, illustrate, call to action. Right? Did everyone get that? Okay, cool. Who has a question on this side? Talia? Okay, great. Awesome.
I can speak for myself and my personal experiences that talking about menstrual issues and talking to other menstruators, there's a lot of shame and there's a lot of like hush hushness about it. And it's hard to, I believe, as a high schooler, talk about this issue and communicate it with non-menstruators and to staff because it has been so shamed. So I was wondering how you as public speakers, educators, senators, students, whatever, what you guys know or how you guys can help us carry out those conversations in our communities, because it's important and it shouldn't be shameful and it shouldn't make people uncomfortable, but it does. So
So I'm gonna have the young people answer this because I think we have a little bit more privilege on advocating for ourselves. When you talked about just doing something, everyday people do extraordinary things. And I want to encourage you, even if you're a student, you don't need a title to fight for something that you believe in. And so you guys have demonstrated how you took an issue, you cared about other people because maybe you didn't even have that issue for yourself, but you worked in your school. So I'm going to go to Dariely. Are you Dominican? They always got a Y in there. Dariely. I just like, I get Dominican all the time. So I'm like, yeah, okay. So if you could explain, like, how did you have that conversation with adults or people in your school or non-administrators to make it an issue that had such a positive impact in your school?
So there was many people that like doubted or something like that. I didn't focus on the people who were saying ew, disgusting and stuff like that, because this is an important topic that should be talked about and should be like supported, yeah. So I didn't pay attention to what others were saying and just talked about it with my teachers like Miss Kat. It was really easy to talk to her about it and Nurse Jade, because they know how it is. And I feel like you should also focus on what you believe in and not what others say, because what others say like isn't really important. Just focus on what you're doing and what you believe in.
Thank you. So Darielle really focused on making sure that you turn inward and focus on your why and that one person, right? If we change one person's mind, and the third thing she said is getting someone in that system, whatever it's, if it's jails, shelters, schools, that is a believer that maybe can be an amplifier for you. I get a lot of calls where someone feels like they can't do something, but if the senator sends the email or makes the phone call on their behalf, then it's amplified and gets closer to the issue. So you both have been doing a lot of great work. I'm going to get, is there a question online at all? All right. Before we get that question, if one of you want to say one strategy that you use that gets to the issue around like, how do you actually get through the stigma and shame and the sort of lack of regard for the issue?
Well, I think it kind of goes back to the other question too, like what can we do? Make people uncomfortable. That's what we can do, because we always assume, we don't want to talk to that person because it's going to make them uncomfortable. Why are we scared to make people uncomfortable? That's how the conversation continues. So for me, I think it's exactly what Charlotte said last time too, is bringing in that hook, making what you're experiencing relatable to somebody else, even though we know it's not relatable. And so talking about what would you do if you went to the bathroom and you didn't have what you needed in that moment? What would you do in that situation? But also just having the conversation and bringing the issue to people who you think are going to be made uncomfortable. Do a product drive right in front of their room, right in front of their office. Do something, make them uncomfortable, because that's how we get things done. That's how we move the needle. So that's my recommendation. I also just want to say, don't make assumptions about what people may think. Because sometimes I think we think that non-menstruators don't understand the issue, so they're not going to be supportive of it. But a lot are. It's actually very surprising when I talk with a lot of male legislators or people who identify as male that are legislators, and they're open to listening. They want to hear because they can't relate, because they've never had a period. They don't know what it's like. They want to hear. And so don't make assumptions. I was actually just at a dinner last night with a teacher who is a male, and he says, I always have products in my room. Nobody ever asked me. Nobody asked me for those products, and they go unused. And I'm actually checking expiration dates because they're going unused. But nobody asks him, but they'll go next door and ask the teacher who identifies as a woman. And so don't make any assumptions, make people uncomfortable, push the boundaries. That's how we're going to get things done.
And I'll just add to that is just calling it by its name, what it is. No sugarcoating it, what it is. Just really, it lends itself to making things uncomfortable. But that's definitely worked for me. I've gone to municipal council meetings and spoken, there's majority men, and just calling it what it is. This is what we need. This is why we need it. It's very helpful, just being blunt.
So we're going to end in 5 minutes. I'm just having a good time here in this chat. I just want to say to all of you guys that the chat has been very affirming, mostly comments about that products and education together are a really powerful tool. And so I'm going to actually lead all of you all into closing remarks by giving the audience one thing that they can do when they leave today's period summit. I'm a politician, so I might give you 2 or 3. We like to talk. But the idea is already I'm going to talk about, let's help pass the IM bill and let's get access into these institutions and products in the hands of the folks that need it the most. I think there's about 60, 70 people here. And so each one of us can think of one place in our community that we can do something for, whether you do that product drive for your own school, or you do it for your dorm, or you do it for your church or house of worship or somewhere else in your community, be very important. So those 2 things, access and IM bill, I got that covered. So I'm going to start with you, and you're going to, it's Alexa, Dariely, and Alice. Can we give them another round of applause? I need constituents like that. Okay. If you can give one thing that you think that they can do right now to help your cause or do something in their community, and you're going to pass it all the way around, and then I'm going to close up. Stop. How can someone help you with what you're doing at your school? They donate, what can they do?
Maybe they can donate some products. Like some schools don't have the dispensers yet. You can maybe donate some of the products because the school might not have any, and some people might have their period and they don't have any products either.
You're in Salem? Anyone here close to Salem, grew up in Salem? So I see 2 people that you can talk to at the end of this to talk about how they can help you beyond St. Mary's and the other schools to get some products. Is that cool? All right, great. Dariely?
I think you can maybe spread the word, tell other people about it and how they can help, because maybe the more people there are here, the better, because the more people we get to help, the better that we get closer to the IM bill.
I think a way people can help is spreading it around to other people that they know. Start conversation, small talk about it.
I'm going to piggyback on Alice's idea. I think in particular, maybe having a conversation with the non-menstruator, right? To draw people into the conversation and spread that advocacy. So an intentional conversation with a non-menstruator.
Awesome. Thank you.
I just want to say saludos para la comunidad latina que está en Zoom. Asha, thank you so much for always making sure you're inclusive. And I would say, when I first started this, the most amazing thing happened was I started noticing all the places that didn't have dispensers. So I was like, I would go into the Cheesecake Factory, or I would go into, Employer, and I'm like, they don't have a dispenser here. They don't have access. So a very simple thing to do is whenever you go to a bathroom and they don't have one, raise it to the attention of wherever you are, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's your place of employment, and say, why don't you have these products? Very simple step, very effective step, and write to the manager of the property, and just, we can't always do, huge things immediately, but a small step of just identifying where there's nothing, no access, and raising that awareness is very, very monumental. And thank you for being here.
You forgot to mention it's because you did that there are products in New Jersey libraries. The conversation. No, that's exactly it. I mean, you have to have that conversation. You need to ask places, can we put products here? But also, and this is a plug for the coalition, is join the coalition. I mean, if we had every single person that's in this room today on our Zoom calls that are once a month for an hour, if you can commit to that, we could make huge change in this state this year. But we need all of you. We need unique voices. We need diverse voices. We need every single person's voice to be a part of that coalition. So I really encourage you, if you can, after this meeting or right now on your phone, join the coalition, because it's very easy to get involved if we can do it together.
So we had a question about when those meetings are. So if someone from the team at Mass Now can put that in there. And also shout out to Amy. We have a Mass commission on the status of women. And I just want to make a plug here. There are 750 boards and commissions in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and many of them don't look like this room. And so the other thing that your legislator can do is nominate you to sit on a commission. And so the Salem folks, here's someone who's Amy Smith, who's offering you some support so that you can get to your product. So we heard a couple of things. Help pass the IM bill. One thing that I realized in the IM bill, I'm not sure if libraries are included or detention centers. And so does that mean we need to edit some language to be inclusive of all public spaces? 2, you're going to email, call your legislator. 3, you're going to try to get more products in the Salem school system and make sure that we're elevating the conversation intentionally with non-administrators. She mentioned, like, you can literally pull up, I'll come to you in a second, pull up somewhere. Many of us are spending our money in places. And for example, I went to the Senate staff bathroom and it had a dispenser and it was empty. So I went for 3 days. I was like, maybe they're refilling it. And after the 3rd day, I decided to email the business office and be like, hey, do you guys know that if there isn't products in my own Senate staff bathroom, I can't imagine that there are in the public restroom. So doing an inventory of where you're at, or even in the places where you frequent, to see if the products are there and communicate. And I forgot, Lacey's, your point is join the coalition. Okay. The Menstrual Equity Coalition is a very important coalition. I will say that we don't know when the hearing is, but another effective way is when the hearing happens, you can testify by sending written testimony, attend to give verbal testimony, and you can engage your social media or your sphere of influence to make sure that other people are speaking about the issue. And I know Mass Now does a great job on comms. So we're going to give this group a round of applause. We want you to stand up to a photo. I just want you to make your comment and your question. Can you speak loudly so I don't have to run up the stairs?
I just wanted to add, I'm Nurse Jade, so I'm the... Hi! I had the 3 girls last year for 5th grade, here with Miss Kat.
Oh, dude.
Jade with a D.
Jade and Kat, caring adults being in a school system. So thank you.
And I just want to add a few things that the girls may have missed, because I really want to highlight their work. And I know this is their story. I don't want to take their,
I totally understand.
Spotlight. But one of the main things is when they were advocating for all these products, that they not only got it in one school, they got it in every single Salem public school.
Oh, sure.
All the way to high school. They also, during their talks with the 4th and 5th grade for puberty, we in Salem do an inclusive puberty talk. And so we give that talk to both bodies with a penis and bodies with a vulva, and that's a lot of our terminology. And so part of that, they got the dispensers installed in all of the gender neutral bathrooms.
Oh, give it up for that. You got in the shade, you got one more snap for them. Okay, go ahead.
So not just for Salem Public Schools, but for all their advocacy. They also did talk to Paul Tucker and his new predecessor, Manny Cruz, advocating for the IM bill. So that's one of their first priorities. But they also, not just for Salem Public Schools, their work inspired other communities. So one of our neighboring public schools in Marblehead actually installed free dispensers in their schools as well.
See, the on how this is amazing. Great job, girls. And also to you two for being there for them. Because sometimes it's hard, right? You know, I'm 40 years old and I constantly have, you know, this sense of like, do I belong? Am I enough? Can I speak loudly enough for people in my district? And so you guys are inspiring me. So we're going to get up, take a photo, and I hope you guys enjoy lunch and the rest of your day. And please stay in touch. Thank you all so much.
All right. Thank you all so much. So as Senator Miranda said, we're going to head downstairs for lunch. So you're going to go out this door to your left and down the steps, or take 2 lefts for an elevator. So we have pizza, vegan, and gluten-free options, and we will see you all downstairs.